Okay, welcome to podcast number 5 of the Global Table Games and Game Protection Conference. This is the 5th one, and I'm starting to like it a little bit more each time we do it because I'm maybe about 30% confident now with this, but I started at 0. And we have a great cast today, and we're going to talk about influencing and marketing in the casino industry. And as usual, I have here my host, Mr. Michael Chapman, otherwise known as the Casino Guru. Now, Michael, I don't just call you a casino guru for nothing. And another thing I will say is, I don't use big words. Yeah. I don't use like sophisticated big words that much, mainly because I don't know many. But Michael, after watching you do these podcasts and reading all your comments on LinkedIn, I truly have come to really know how omniscient you are. Now, believe it or not, that's one of the big words I didn't know. I didn't have to look it up for this podcast. But you are omniscient, and your knowledge spans much wider than the bridge behind me.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I've had some wonders in my past, so
it's a pleasure to have you podcasting. Being the host on this podcast, I really appreciate you. So let's get on with this, and let's introduce our 2 special guests, and let's start with Cara Cohan. Cara, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I don't know. I'm just crashing. Somebody told me there was candy. So.
Well, if Nick
chips with chocolate in it, I was all in. No. So I am with marketing. I don't even know who I'm with anymore. I have a company called Maverick Marketing 360, an agency that specializes in casino marketing, and we help casino marketing teams, doesn't matter what area of marketing, but working within marketing strategy, promotions, identifying target audiences, and finding your most effective voice to be communicating with your players and guests if you have a property, not just a casino. And I'm happy to be back with the team again. It's been a few months since the last conference, so we had a good time. Yep. So I'm looking forward to today's session, seeing what happens.
Okay, that sounds very cool. And Mr. Craig Shacklett.
You nailed it.
Okay, I nailed it.
I'll respond to any of the above.
Okay. So would you tell us a little bit about your endeavors in the casino industry?
You got it. Yeah. So my business is URComped, and so URComp's been around since 2014, and we really focused up until the pandemic on basically URComp's a platform. Players can sign up, they qualify themselves, and then they get offers at different casinos. And really, the cruise line was our main focus. We're the #1 booking source for casino booking source for our cruise partner. We drive, we'll probably come close to driving $60 million in gaming revenue to our cruise partners this year from players we booked, our team books. And now we're doing more and more with land-based casinos. And then a derivative of URCompt is Trio 360, which is basically a CRM. It's a communication platform for casinos to talk to their players in a more seamless way. So that's kind of our area of focus in the casino space.
That URCompt is a great name. It's really catchy. URCompt. That's everybody wants to hear those words, like when they're in a casino. Sir, URCompt, right? Everybody likes it. Yeah. And you also have a podcast, correct?
Yeah, we put out. I mean, I just love talking to other folks in the industry and hearing everyone's stories. So yeah, I put out some content as well. It's more I think maybe a handful of people beyond my mom listen to it, but yeah, it's more just scratch my own itch.
I want to ask you, Craig, one question before I hand this over to the guru over here. The question is, now, as I said before, I'm not big words. I don't use many big words, and but I am into casino buzzwords. And there seem to be every so often there's a new buzzword in the casino industry, and like the last one that comes to my mind is integrator, right? Casino integrator. Now, it took me a while to really figure out what exactly that was, and as a matter of fact, at my first conference in 2022 at the Excalibur, I had gotten an email from a vendor asking if I was interested in having integrators at my conference. And I sent an email back and I said, sure. And then as soon as I was done answering the email, I was saying to myself, what is an integrator? Is, if it's somebody who integrates, I really had no idea. And now there's a new one out there. It's been out there for a while. It's called influencer. And, the name Brian Christopher pops up with the slot machines and all that. And we'll talk a little bit about him as this goes on. But would you explain to everybody, Craig, exactly what is an influencer, especially in the casino business, and why have they become so important?
Sure. So influencer in the casino business specifically, I think in the simplest terms, is people that are playing slot machines for the most part and then filming themselves, and they build an audience via YouTube, now more, you're seeing TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, influencer in general, I mean, a lot of times, I guess up until maybe 10 years ago or less, to become a celebrity, you really had to go through NBC or ABC or one of these big, mainstream networks, and somebody had to kind of approve you, and then you got put on a show, and then you had influence that way, or you could be a pro athlete or did something through a different platform. YouTube has really democratized it in the sense that anybody can go out there, start putting up good content and build an audience, and then all of a sudden they have influence over that audience. And so casino properties and then game manufacturers have really woken up and started partnering with these influencers to bring attention to new games or bring people to properties or whatnot. But really, yeah, an influencer is just somebody that is kind of a solo media entrepreneur that's using YouTube and these open platforms to build their own audience.
Okay. Cara.
Yes.
Now you are you're marketing. Both you and Craig, I assume, do most of your work online. It's all about online, whether you're reaching out to casinos or players. It's all about online, correct? More, all the work goes online for the influencers to make people aware of of what's going on in particular casinos. In Brian Christopher's case, he finds which slot machines that he likes for what reason, or which ones he doesn't like for whatever reason, and people kind of identify with him, and they kind of like decide, well, I want to go play slots where Brian Christopher plays slots. So like I'm wondering, is it really the character of the influencer that drives players to casinos more than what the casinos actually have to offer? Like how does this really work? Is there psychology involved in it? Anything, I'm really curious about this stuff.
I think when you're looking at the influencers, part of it is an aspirational thing that you want to, I don't know if it emulates the right word, but you want to be what where they are, what they're doing, how they're doing it. Like when you think of, like some supermodel or any of these other influencers out there with products that get sponsored, right? And that's really what happened with Brian Christopher. I mean, he just started with a following, just playing slots and videotaping himself and posting it, right? And using the right keywords and hashtags to, get identified. And I think that people that follow him, you're hoping you're going to hit the same amount of luck that he's having, because let's face it, I mean, slots is luck. There's really not a lot of strategy that goes into hitting a button. We can think there is all day, but and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, but I'm seriously, we'd all be really
tapping the screen doesn't help.
So, so somebody that's following him and seeing that there's a lot of fun and a lot of excitement, and he doesn't seem to get annoyed when he loses. And I think that it's an aspirational. I want to be like that, right? I want to have that fun even if I'm losing. I want to be in that atmosphere. I want to have people around me that are cheering, even though they're not going to be cheering you because they don't know who you are. But you're hoping for that type of outcome. So it's that feel good marketing approach. You can feel good, you can have fun, it's exciting, come to our property and, play slots, be a winner. I think that's where the influencers have their influence.
So when a casino teams up with an influencer, like somebody like Brian Christopher, I would assume the marketing department of the casino works with him and they kind of develop a strategy together, or they just say, maybe Brian, you just take care of it. We don't really care what you do. Just do it because your name is so big. How does that work?
I don't know how it works in your casino, Michael, but when we were looking into it at some of the properties I used to work at, it really depends on the level of the influencer and their follower and how big they are in the industry now, because it is their own industry and their own segment. And some of them expect a lot of comping now, especially Brian, who's even got slot machines, partnering with him. They're expecting,
wow,
whether they want free play, food comps, travel expenses, they're going to be promoting your property. So they want some type of compensation other than the play that they're going to be doing, right? If you find lesser known influencers, we were looking into some when I was at Hard Rock last year, and my social media manager, she was talking to a few, and they were just looking for rooms, but they don't necessarily have that same kind of following. So I think it really depends on your property, the demographics of your property, where you're located. So there's a lot of data strategy that would probably go into identifying which influencer you want to work with and at what level. Obviously, if you're bringing in a Brian Christopher like Agua Caliente does, right, you're going to be looking at much higher costs out of your marketing budget for that.
It's very much like bringing in players.
Yeah.
You're going to look at your value to the influencer, just like you look at your value to your player. What are you going to get from that influencer, from a Theo, basically, not from themselves particular, but really from who they're going to bring in. Right. If they can bring in 10,000 people in a year, that's a lot of Theo. If they can bring in 500 people, not so much. And, that's going to be the difference between, for some casino jargon for you, Richard's RF&B or, just a room.
And then you have to think about also, like you said, the Theo, when you start looking at the behavior and the target of those players that follow the influencers, it's not going to be your higher end players, right? It's going to be a whole different level of player and psychographic that follows an influencer, right?
Yep.
And that's going to vary by market too.
Absolutely. I mean, I go back.
Where do
go
ahead.
The early days. Of course, you've got, Marilyn was an influencer, and John, and you build your way up through time. And I'm dating myself a little bit, but I go back to really the explosion, so to speak, of influence in the gaming industry. I bring in Peter Morton back when I was at the Hard Rock. Right. I've said it before on another podcast. The original Hard Rock Hotel was the hottest joint in Los Angeles. It was just 5 hours away. And that was all about influence. That was all about wanting to, be elbow to elbow with your big name rock stars, your big name movie stars. You never knew who you were going to see at the Center Bar at the Hard Rock. And that's really what that kind of a feel.
And then the Palms followed on that one. Right. Yeah, when the Roofs came into the Palms, it was forget Hard Rock. Now it's the Palms.
Correct. Yeah. They took over that
the Foundation Room at Mandalay.
Yep.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah. It does seem like a lot of stuff is going on at the Palms. I was just there with my wife a couple of weeks ago, and was parties galore and fashion shows, charity events. I mean, just everything was going on there. And I'm sure at the bottom of all of it, there was a lot of influencing going on. For I would say for sure. So I wanted to ask you, Craig. You work a lot with cruise lines, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You do. So are they as much involved in influencing with the influencers, or say land-based casinos?
They're coming around on it for sure. I'm trying to think if I'd say they're all open to filming in the casino with pre-approval. They see the value in it, and we've partnered with influencers before. We did the first Brian Christopher cruises. Now Brian he's with Carnival. He has an exclusive deal. We did a few URComp cruises with Royal Caribbean. One of the things that I think is valuable to casinos and is important is taking full advantage of these influencer events, because what can happen is you get all these people in, and let's say you got 1,000 ADT players, somebody that's legit, that is like, oh, Brian Christopher or whoever is playing at this casino, I'm gonna drive in for 3 hours, but they're used to getting free rooms somewhere else, and they're like, oh, I don't want to pay for my room, I've never played here before. So they sign up for a player's card, and maybe they play for 2 hours. They're kind of watching whoever the influencer is. They play for a couple hours. They register, let's say it's 300 in Theo or 250, and then they leave, and the casino just sees them as a 200 ADT player instead of the normal 1,000 ADT player. They didn't offer a room up front to get them to stay for a couple nights. And so I think something that's important for casinos is to build something around that event where players can pre-qualify themselves. And that's something that we do with URComp with casinos. But so we could partner with them, but they should put that thought in ahead of time. Is like, if you're paying the money to get somebody in, make sure you're leveraging it, not just saying, okay, how much was this Tuesday compared to last Tuesday? Like, do something where these players, you can find out who they are before they show up, and try to keep the best players for a couple nights instead of just a drive-in quick event. That was, I guess you asked about cruise lines, and I answered a totally different question, but it is something we do with cruise lines, and they find a lot of value in that. You're able to get these people, instead of saying, hey, we're having an influencer on board, pay for your cruise. A lot of high value players aren't going to do that. But if you say we got an influencer on board, you're a fan of them, and here's a free balcony cruise to enjoy for the week, then you're going to get all that play.
So are these okay? Besides Brian Christopher, are there any other influencers with a big name that you guys are aware of? Are there any women out there doing this? On a big time, the big time way that Brian is doing this? I'm just curious. Like, okay, so Brian's I don't know, how old is he? Like 30, maybe 30 years old or something like that. I'm trying to.
Now there's women out there. There's Lady Luck slots. There's Slot Cats is one that we did a cruise with. There's a bunch. I'm gonna feel bad because there's some great ones I'm leaving out. But I mean, the industry is really booming. I think Brian's probably the biggest name. There's the Big Jackpot has a huge following. There's a handful of them that are like up there in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And I think Brian's done a great job like building his business. He's really savvy as an entrepreneur as well as a media creator. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that have a big following that are out there.
And these casinos, go ahead, Cara.
No, I was going to add on that. I think too that you have to look at, Brian was like the first big one out there, right? I mean, there may have been others that videotaped themselves and uploaded it to YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, but he was the one that really did it in a more mass market sort of way. And, would say where he's going to be and follow me. And he started in smaller markets. He didn't necessarily start in the bigger markets. So I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration, is what market are you in, and where are they, where are these influencers coming from? And, you talked about Theo and talking about the comps ahead of time and stuff, and for some of the people in the smaller markets, I don't think you can really quantify what they're going to bring in if you don't know them. So, I mean, that's just where I get a little leery, because there are followers and then there are followers,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, I think you know, you guys both hit on something big there. That the first one, I think, Craig, in getting into one of the things you said was that the cruise lines are opening up to the value of the filming with permission on site. And I think there's still a lot of jurisdictions. For example, you know, where I'm at, we technically can't allow filming on the floor. You know, that's not to say that it doesn't happen, but technically we can't allow it. The state won't allow it. And there's different jurisdictions that actually have that in place. And I think that's going to be a challenge, really, as the influencer segment expands, you know, nationally and globally, is where can you film? And I think that's something that both regulatory and the operators have to look at and say, you know, there's a huge value to that. And then, you know, again, looking at who are you bringing in and what level are you going to. When you have the local influencer at a local casino, you really need to look at, you know, as Cara was saying, what are they influencing? What are they bringing in? What are you able to leverage from their influence?
And something else you mentioned, Craig, on the cruise lines, you've got a captive audience. They can't go anywhere. You know, you're kind of stuck, right? So you may squeeze some money out of somebody that might not have, you know, normally played. You know, that's one thing. And the other thing is when you build trips around the influencers on a cruise ship, you're getting, you know, a little bit more revenue that you might not have been getting in a land-based property, right? So you may be getting people that follow them that think it's really cool and they want to do it, and they've never even been a passenger of that particular cruise line. You know, so I think there's additional revenue that can be had for cruise ships to targets that they never went after in the first place.
Yeah, it's a good point. I'd love to partner with some land casinos that maybe are in a destination market for an influencer event and just see what would happen if they were able to pre-make offers. What I mean is, you know, let's say a big influencer says we're showing up here in 60 days, and work with the casino to say, all right, if it's a big fan that wants to fly in, would you do some flight reimbursement, that kind of thing, to actually make it a bigger event. Because yeah, that is a challenge. If I live in Michigan and somebody's playing in Arizona, you know, if I'm not getting something big, I'm not going to go. I'll just watch it on YouTube. But if it's like, hey, I can come, I can try a new property and get free room nights, I may consider it.
You know what else you could here's just an idea that just popped in my head as you were saying something. If you were a cruise line, right, like Princess or Norwegian, or actually Princess wouldn't be, I've sailed with them. You know, if you were a cruise line that had a partnership with land-based casinos, because some of them do have partnerships with MGM and with Caesars, right? And then you have a local market like Florida, which doesn't have any of them. But if you were in, let's say, California, right, and you have a partnership with Caesars, so you've got Harrah's Rincon down in Temecula, San Diego area, and it's like, hey, do you pre-cruise and then get on the boat and have your points, you know, and then the influencer continues on, right? So you have that pre-cruise and then the cruise.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a win-win for everybody, because Caesars gets a share of the pot. You get the comps, you get the cruise line gets it, you know, they keep earning, the players keep earning points, and, you know, the gift that keeps
get the influencer world tour t-shirt with all the different
stocks.
There you go.
Yeah. Let me ask you guys a question. How much okay, so so Brian Christopher, he's been out there for how long now, more or less? A couple of years, or
5 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's about 5 years now.
Okay. And he's the one who really, you know, got this thing to the next level. So since he came around, has he actually changed how land-based casinos approach marketing, the total picture of their marketing program? I mean, has he had that much of an effect where it's like, the is like influencing? Has it become the most important element of casino marketing, or not quite? You're shaking your head, so I guess you're saying not really. Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, there's just so many facets of marketing that's just one promotional element, maybe. And, that's not going to fit everybody. It's not going to fit every property. It's not going to fit every player. It's not, yeah. I think it's just another tool in your, belt.
What are the most
That's my
important
opinion.
tools, right? No, in your opinion, what are the most important tools right now in casino marketing?
I think you're going to get a different answer from everybody. In my opinion, I think, you've got to start with your data and
Analytics.
yeah. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got to understand your player and your property, because I mean, I've been so many places where people don't have the time. I mean, I literally asked somebody once, this was years ago, how'd that campaign do or whatever. And I don't know, we don't have time to look at it. I was like, what? There's still a lot of throw the crap against the wall to see what sticks. So I think it really depends on the team and the leader and the it really depends on the marketing team, the head of marketing, and the GM, and how and then having a really good director of database and an analytics group.
So where do you guys see influencing going in the future, the next 5 or 10 years? Could it really just keep getting bigger and bigger, or could it turn out to just be a fad type of marketing that suddenly isn't so effective anymore? Where do you guys see it going?
I mean, I think it's going to keep growing. I think there's more and more content tools that are out there to make video editing easier, increase the quality of the content these guys are putting out. And so I think it's just going to be a bigger factor. More and more people are going to YouTube. And if you think about like Deal or No Deal, that show's been around a long time. There's a lot of shows that are like that are pretty simple, that are less entertaining than a slot machine. I think for a lot of people, like Deal or No Deal, it's like, oh, what's the next box? But if I'm watching somebody just cranking away the slot machine, hitting jackpots, I mean, that's entertaining. So really it's about which of these people playing slots are the most entertaining themselves. Who I want to watch playing slots. Or now you're starting to see some table game folks pop up. There's a guy named Brandon O'Brien who's he's great. We did a cruise with him, and he's filmed himself playing blackjack with permission of the casino. So I think influencer marketing is going to continue to grow for sure. And I think smart casinos are going to embrace it, because that's an easy way to get somebody in the door. Because you asked earlier about like what's the most powerful lever. I mean, probably it's free play still. Like if somebody's evaluating two offers, if one's like 200 in free play, one's 50 in free play, they're gonna go to the 200 in free play.
We can have that free play conversation.
Oh yeah.
I know, Michael. We've talked about the free play card. It's like everybody thinks marketing that we just print money and we just throw out the free play.
Don't ask Nick Ippolito about it. He doesn't like it.
No, but it's just that drives a lot of players, right? But if let's say all things are equal, if they got some person they love watching on YouTube, and it's their guilty pleasure every night they tune in, and if that person's at that casino, they're going to drive there. So anyway, I think it's going to grow. It's going to be a more powerful force.
And you mentioned.
That's all I think. It's just another marketing channel, right? You have social media, you have direct mail, you have email, you have mobile, blah, 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 right? Radio, television, and influencers tie into social media, but they're not your influencer, right? So they're not going to be there all the time. So you have to effectively plan that. So it's a combination of an event, a promotion, and an execution channel, right? That they're happy to participate in. So you have to use that wisely, because they're not always going to be at your property, right? So I think it goes into event and promotion planning.
Yeah, I'm gonna go down the road that I unfortunately always go down, and that's we've got from an operator standpoint, we've got online casinos, we've got virtual gaming that's coming. It's not there yet, but it's coming. And I think that that's really where your influencer is going to truly get their power, because your influencer can drive both your online partner or online casino, if you happen to have it within yourself, or who you're partnering with. And it's going to drive that play not just to the online, which is going to be their fundamental, because let's face it, the future is going to be online gaming. But it's going to drive that visit to the property, to the brick and mortar as well. And I think I've said it before at the last seminar. I said, if brick and mortars don't embrace online, they're going to go away. And I think that's the ones that are going to stay, are the ones that are going to take things like influencers and mesh it with the VR, mesh it with the online, and really bring an experience to the player.
That's going to be a hard set. I mean, I agree with you. Let me start that way. I agree. But I think you have some tribes that are going to have issues with that, right? And tribal governments and tribal compliance that, just their licensing issues. And we all, if anybody's worked for tribal gaming, we know how long it takes them just to give somebody a gaming license.
Right.
Right. So
issue of sovereignty.
Yeah.
Part of a sovereign nation.
Right. So I think, you have progressive tribes like San Manuel and Peter Arceo, right? And they'll be at the forefront of trying these type of things, plus they're in Las Vegas with the Palms, so it's to their advantage to move into that space more aggressively. And an Agua Caliente. And so you get some of these more progressive tribes that will go there. It's my opinion.
Craig, you were talking about, you started to talk about table games, because we started off by talking about slots. And is it, as it is now, is the influencing in the brick and mortar casinos, is it a large percentage of it is really with slots more than the rest of the casino? Because I know slots are the most important thing to casinos anyway. But I'm wondering, you started, there are table games influencers out there now as well. Is that just a small amount, or is it getting bigger, or is it really as important? Or since table games only take up a small percentage of the casinos, it's really not that important? I just want to know, like what is going on with influencing, a little more specifically, influencing and table games.
It's definitely a lot smaller of a niche, because it's a lot harder to get permission to do it. And so there's just fewer people that are filming themselves making that content. But yeah, it's out there, it's growing, and I think there's an audience for it. So if somebody said, hey, we're going to be the first to allow it, here's our filming okay table, or whatever, where it's, every other table's off limits, but here's one you could film at, something like that. I think it would definitely generate an audience, but it's as of right now, it's just a very small fraction of
you just made a point that made me think of everything about what's been going on with table games. And one of the issues, really important issues, is the mere survival of table games, which we did a podcast on. And maybe casinos would do themselves much better if they allowed more filming on table games and brought in more influencers to do their gig on table games. And based on how successful it is with slots, that might generate or regenerate some more table game action and increase the possibility of long-term survival for table games. So what do you guys think of that?
Well, I would just, to add on, I think one of the biggest things that is a hindrance to people trying table games is it's intimidating. It's not like a slot machine where you're by yourself. If you screw up, no one's going to see it. And not that you can really screw up pressing a button, but table games, there's that fear that, I'm going to make a bad hit on blackjack and I'm going to hear a bunch of groans. People are going to look at me side-eyed. And I think influencers can really help with that, where people, because you see it on the slot side, people are trying new slot games that they're like, I don't understand the bonus. I'm just going to play what I'm used to playing. But then they see somebody play it online. They're like, oh, I get it now. That seems like a lot of fun. I want to play it. Table games, I think would benefit a lot by having more content out there where people can learn how to play Ultimate Texas Hold'em or whatever, and then they'll feel more confident to sit down and play.
You know what, you brought up a lot of good points there, because I think with table games, I think the one negative on the influencer side, and it's not the influencers, it's I don't know who said that, you know, if they had certain games tables set aside that they could film at. Influencers like to move from machine to machine to machine, right? So if they can only film at one or two tables, they kind of lose that excitement and momentum. But the nice thing about tables is it skews a little bit younger. So it's a way to bring a younger audience back into the land-based properties, number one. Number two, like how much of a bump the casinos saw in their poker rooms when they started airing all those poker channel games, right? I mean, people that never played Texas Hold'em or any of the, you know, different poker room games suddenly started showing up to play or try it, right? And, you know, they might get a bump at their table games if they had that kind of visibility.
Yeah, I'm gonna waive my consulting fee, give a little free advice here. We've got 5% of our players typically in table games, roughly, that are going to give us 30% of our income, and that's the high limit room. But that leaves 60% of our play, 70% of our play in our revenue is left to the quote unquote retail play. The people just coming in, the regular people. Why wouldn't we build a room and have an influencer room where you can film in that room and you can set up the games with a lower limit, a little more protection, different things that, you know, to alleviate the fears. But there's that influencer room that you can go in, you can do your filming, and, you know, that's going to bump a 70%, not a 30%. And literally that 70%
Michael,
is where
we're having trouble. We're having trouble.
Not so much.
Michael, we're having trouble with your sound. If you could,
if you froze up there for a minute.
If you could make that point again, please, because it sounded really good, but it sounded like another language, though.
Let me put another quarter in the phone. Yeah, my point was, you know, we look at 5% of our players, our high limit players. We build rooms for them, and they bring in about 30% of our play. But 70% of our play comes from
it doesn't like
the normal retail players. Why not build? Oh, it's driving me nuts today, is it?
No, now you're good.
Let me see if I can disconnect. All right.
You're good now.
It looks like I'm going to have some editing to do here.
Right.
So serious.
Making you work hard. Give you some practice.
All right. Take two. Action. Lights, camera, action.
You need an influencer room, Michael.
Right. So I'm looking at the fact that 5% of our players bring in about 30% of our money, and we build high limit rooms for them. But we leave 70% of our play out on the gaming floor. Why not build an influencer room where you can boost that 70%? You can get that play that we're losing predominantly now. We're still getting our high limit play. People like the Post Whisperer are getting them out there. But let's get an influencer room and let's drive some regular play.
Okay, well, I think a large percentage of it made it through, but I'll tell you what, we have a good this is good material for the bloopers that I'm going to put at the end of this.
Right,
that's for sure. But I think enough of it came through. Now, you know, this has really been a very interesting subject, and I did learn a lot. Now, but before we end this, Craig, I just want to ask you one last question. What did you say an influencer was?
Oh man, did that not get recorded too?
Okay, guys. Thank you very much for being here. I want to thank everybody else out there for listening to this. And excuse me for the few technical problems that we had. But as Cara said, we're going to get Michael a sound influencer, so we don't have to this problem on the next podcast. And okay, so again, thank you very, very much. And it was just a pleasure talking with you guys. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for watching the podcast. We are going to continue with this educational series with a lot more content. So if you find this interesting and you support everything that we're doing here at the Global Table Games and Game Protection Conference, please subscribe to the channel. And I hope to see you at the conference March 5th through 7th at the Sahara, Las Vegas.